Kami's Lookout, or God's Temple in Dragon Ball, is a secret location where the Z Warriors often visit for training, but of course we all know it as the home where the Guardian of Earth lives, as well as his trusted friend, Mr. Popo. But one of the most interesting mysteries is why it cannot be seen from the ground of Earth, and why the mere Earthlings of the Dragon Ball world can breathe up that high. Heck, you can't even see the lookout from Korin's tower. So in this video, I'm going to go through the concept and dimensions of the lookout and its location, and explain why it should, in reality, be very visible from the ground below, because in Dragon Ball this would create a huge problem in the form of a plot hole. However, what may save this from actually being a plot hole are none other than Dragon Ball physics, which are completely different to real life physics, and I'm not talking about anything fancy. I'm talking about simply distance and atmosphere. If you're a fan of my Dragon Ball Z videos, hit the like button and let me know you'd like more. Hey, you could even subscribe and check out the rest of my library. I'm sure there's something there you'd like, and thank you so much. Now I want you to think about a commercial airplane that are typically 30 to 80 meters in length that fly up high around 30 to 40,000 feet. That's about 6 to 8 miles above sea level. When you look up to the sky on a clear day, there's no problem seeing that plane or identifying its shape. People from thousands of miles in every direction on that side of the planet would be able to see that plane up high in the sky. You wouldn't have to be directly underneath to see it. Even when you're up high at cruising altitude, you can see miles and miles and miles and miles in every direction. Surely any character on Earth should be able to see a circle shape floating up in the sky. Good old Kami's Lookout. They would be able to notice it's not a moon or a planet, and a circle in the sky would eventually get investigated by the people of Earth, making it no longer a secret. We'll talk about the clouds in a moment. Let's talk about the distance to the lookout from Earth. First, we need to work out how tall Korin's tower is. According to the Super Exciting Guide, it states Korin's tower is more than 8,000 meters high, which would be more than 26,246.72 feet to be precise. But what annoys me with that is, why don't they simply state the exact height? They are meant to be the guide after all. Just give us the number. None of this more than bollocks. More than 26,000 feet? So what? 28,000? 30,000? Where do we stop? Okay, pet peeve over. Based on more than, I tend to sit it comfortably at 30,000 feet, which would be 9,144 meters. No jokes, thank you. You're 10 years too late. Akira Toriyama mentions Korin Tower being potentially in the stratosphere, which in reality would be within the ranges of 10,000 feet to 50,000 feet. And although Toriyama sounds like he doesn't have a clue what he's talking about in this reply because he's a comic book artist, not a mad scientist, I think close to 10,000 meters or 30,000 feet for Korin's Tower is acceptable and the safest bet in the Dragon Ball world based on what we've got in the guides at least. In terms of the lookout, Goku and Yajirobe could not see it from Korin Tower, and it should be noted the top of Korin Tower cannot be seen from Earth. There is zero information about the exact height of the lookout from Korin Tower or from Earth, but one would be safe in thinking it's at least another Korin's Tower worth on top of Korin's Tower, putting the lookout at potentially 60,000 feet above ground at least. Now you'll start to realize why Dragon Ball physics are completely different to real world physics, especially in terms of distance and atmosphere. In reality, if a plane flies 40,000 feet on a clear day or even somehow went higher to 60,000 feet, it would still be visible. So even at 60,000 feet, the lookout should be visible by the human eye. At 60,000 feet in reality should be well out of the stratosphere and into the mesosphere where no mere earthling body can survive. All that's said in the manga is that the lookout is much higher than Korin Tower. That's it. West City is right across the gulf there from Korin's Tower and is arguably the largest city in Dragon Ball. Also not far is the Red Ribbon Army HQ, which is basically its own city. The truth is, Kami's Lookout should be visible if it's 10 miles high, and that would create a ton of problems for this secret location in Dragon Ball, unless, like I said, Dragon Ball physics makes Earthlings' eyesight 10 times worse than in reality. I tried looking up to see if there are exact dimensions for the lookout, but Toriyama is so inconsistent with his art, as well as the panels on the lookout grounds. They change per panel. A better estimate would be using the trees up there compared to the height of the characters. But the lookout can be estimated to be between 75 to 100 meters long. That's around 250 to 300 feet, or maybe bigger depending on which panels and images you use. But it's bigger than your average airplane, which means the altitude it would have to be for us not to see it would be dozens of miles or kilometers up into the sky, to the point a normal person would die immediately from freezing to death or depressurization. 20 miles up you wouldn't just need an oxygen tank, but the warmest pressure suit you can find. In regards to being constantly concealed by clouds or possessing some mystical invisibility cloak, these are completely false. It's at times referenced to be the temple above the clouds. In the anime, there was a moment Goku passes through cloud layers, but we also see him fly directly towards the tower and to the lookout with no hints of clouds. There clearly shouldn't be clouds covering it 24/7, 365 days a year. If there were permanent clouds in that location, Earthlings should notice this anomaly. And this is where Dragon Ball is different from real life. It's a magical world. There is an interesting panel where Korin says that even if a rocket came close to the sanctuary, it would be rejected. That makes you wonder if the Guardian of Earth would magically repel or divert incoming aircraft without them knowing, to keep the lookout secret. I don't think Kami would blast them down, otherwise he's not really the Guardian of Earth or the Earthlings, is he? Good luck surviving from that distance. But as long as they are weaker than Kami, obviously, he can probably repel them with magic somehow, because it didn't work too well with Super Buu crashing the party, right? Sure, Emperor Pilaf got to the lookout in Dragon Ball GT, but that's because Dende and Mr. Popo were massively distracted with Goku and Oob destroying the lookout. It's not like he was going to pause that fight and say, let me just repel Pilaf away. Which, if you go with the logic that Earth's Guardian can reject incoming aircraft or anyone, then sure, Dende could have probably stopped the entire Black Star saga. Then Baby would have got even stronger in space, and eventually enslave the galaxy and take over everyone, because no one can stop his power. Well done, Emperor Pilaf. Obviously, Bulma flies up there later in the series, but that's because she's known to God. It's never stated Kami can actually make the lookout invisible, unless his magic creates an illusion to weaker beings to make it look like it's not there. That's headcanon though. Now let's talk about the oxygen levels in Dragon Ball compared to real life. There is no magical bubble of oxygen around the lookout, as characters describe the thin air up there. If Korin's tower is stated to be over 26,000 feet high, and the lookout is potentially double that, in reality 10,000 feet is where most people start becoming short of breath. At that altitude, oxygen levels are about 2/3 of what they are at sea level. At 25,000 feet, oxygen levels are about 1/3 of what they are at sea level, and apparently that's not even the height of Korin Tower according to the guides. Bulma, Mara, and Baby Trunks, all Earthlings can survive up on the lookout despite being subjected to the really thin air up there. So real world atmospheric conditions do not work in Dragon Ball unless Korin's Tower and the lookout are far lower than what the guides state, which would lead to the lookout being far more visible from the Earth, yet it still can't be seen, which again traps you because that would mean real world distance and sight doesn't apply to Dragon Ball. At a limit, the lookout being 25,000 to 30,000 feet would make the most sense in terms of going in line with real world atmospheric conditions. But even that's stretching it. Whichever one you want to go with, distance or atmospheric conditions, is broken because of the other. If an average Earthling were to do a full-blown workout at 25,000 feet, or even jog to the toilet to have a shit, they are going to find themselves in a bit of a pickle. The battle with Beerus in Battle of Gods, Goku was much higher than the lookout. Goku wasn't in the vacuum of space when fighting Beerus because he can't survive there. He was likely breathing in the stratosphere zone, which can go up to around 50,000 feet, where you actually shouldn't be able to breathe at that altitude no matter how skilled you are. In Battle of Gods, they appeared much higher than simply the stratosphere at times, more like the exosphere at times. Just let the story play out and don't question anything. Akira Toriyama is writing for the story, not to give us a math lesson. That's what power levels were, and look what happened to those. In conclusion, it is stupid why the lookout cannot be seen from Earth, but even if you claim it's too high to see, which would be dozens of miles high as well as being permanently concealed by clouds, then no mere Earthling could survive up there anyway. It's a plot hole when comparing it to real world physics, which is something you really shouldn't do with Dragon Ball, because not only are Dragon Ball physics different, but it's a magic based world. Heck, even the lookout magically floats. People in Dragon Ball can breathe much higher than they can in real life, and apparently their eyesight sucks compared to real life as well, because they can't see the lookout in the sky. Even Baby Pan can take the Pilaf gang all the way up to where Goku and Beerus fought, and none of them had trouble breathing. Just look at Monster Carrot, he officially lives on the moon. All of it, it's no big deal, just enjoy the world for what it is. It's essentially a gag universe made for fun. Even gag progresses the plot at times, and I just thought I'd make a video to address that. Sure, Dragon Ball is inspired by things in the real world, but what some Greek philosophers can't seem to understand is that just because something is inspired doesn't mean it's exactly the same in the story. Goku is not actually Sun Wukong. I don't know if you know that yet, but be sure to tell your friends about it. I mean, you can try to work out the height of the lookout by watching Dragon Ball Super Superhero and analyzing Piccolo free falling from it, and then calculate how high the lookout is based on how long Piccolo fell at terminal velocity. Here's the formula, and have a nice day with that. But thank you so much for watching this video. A shout out to Chi-Chi-Verse on Twitter for helping me a lot with the information in this video. I really appreciate that. Go and follow her for more Dragon Ball content, and until we meet again, Scholar, keep being a role model.